Welcome to this Phi Beta Mu Legacy Project interview. Today, it is my pleasure to introduce to you my friend, Phi Beta Mu Hall of Fame member, Johnny Folsom. Johnny, welcome.
Thank you very much. And looking at you, I should have dressed a little bit more appropriately today. I'm sorry.
Oh, you are just fine. One of those nice things about being retired, you can wear anything that you want to. Although, Johnny, when it comes to being retired, I don't think you quite grasp that concept, which I know we'll get into, because if there's one thing you haven't done well, it's just simply retire.
True.
But
I enjoy it and don't want to give it up. Yeah.
and that, yeah, that's the important thing. When I became a band director, early 80s, you were, really already established and really had some good bands down at T.R. Miller. And so what I'd like to do is just wind the clock back, and let's just start with, how did you get your start in music as a youngster?
But very good. That's where I'd like to start as well. I didn't have a clue when I graduated from high school what I wanted to do. I
Yeah,
absolutely did not.
yeah.
And so I went to Jeff Davis Junior College, it was at the time, up at Bruton, just up the road about 14 miles. And I missed band so much that I decided, well, I'm going to be a band director because I had enjoyed band in high school. That was my thing. And I almost quit band one year. I think it was ninth grade. You know how you get kidded around school. And
Uh-huh.
I told mom I was going to quit band and go out for football. And she said, well, Johnny, why would you want to do that? And I said, well, they're telling me I'm a sissy, and and I'm going to show them. And she said, well, you can do that if you want to, but you got talent. I don't know that I'd do that. And I'm glad she talked me out of it. And anyway,
That was a good conversation. And so now, did you grow up in Brute?
in
Was it
Flomaton.
Flomaton?
Flomaton is
Okay.
in the county, just a smaller school down the road from T.R. Miller. And T.R. Miller was where I looked up to all my life as the band in South Alabama.
Hmm?
And never dreamed that I'd be director there one
One day
day.
you'd be there. And so now, you know, let's go back even further to when you were, I don't know, elementary school or transition to middle school or whatever. As far as getting your start in music, in band, what was it sort of all along? It was a foregone conclusion, when I get old enough, I'm joining the band, or was it a buddy that talked you into it and you thought,
No,
hey, maybe
I
this
think
be cool?
I enjoyed watching bands, and I thought I want to be a part of that. And so we started band in the fourth grade on
Wow.
flutophone. It was at the
Hmm.
time, which is
Yeah.
they're refined into some other name these days, but song flute or something. And then started our instruments in the fifth grade. And I actually was one that they pulled up. We were such a small band. They pulled me up in the sixth grade and let me march with the high school band in the sixth grade at Flomaton. So
Wow. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
my dad was
Yeah.
the principal, and my mother taught English there, and so yeah,
I guess there are pluses and minuses for you having your dad as principal
yes,
and
sir.
your mom as a teacher.
I hated English. I was good at it because my mother made me, and then I got her as a teacher as a senior, and I loved it. And I realized, it's not English I didn't like; it's the teacher, and that has stuck with me, and I think served me well in band as well. It's not band; it's the director. You have to connect with students, and that's one of the things that I think I learned early on by
Yeah.
watching
Yeah.
mom and dad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So start out in junior college, and
Mhm.
then so take us from there. So you kind of, I think I want to be a band director. And
Yes,
so
I ran to my former band director, Gerald Kofer. I don't know if you ever knew him. He
I,
was at
I know the
Flomaton,
name. Yeah.
but he had left to go to T.R. Miller after my senior year. So he was the director there, and that's in the town where Jeff Davis was. So I ran to his house to tell him excitedly that I was going to be a band director. And he said, no, you don't want to do that, Johnny. It's not what you think. It's not just marching around and being fun and concerts and being fun. You're going to have to do theory and it's hard and piano and it's hard. And he was right, but here I am.
Made it through. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was already a year behind. You can't, it's a sequential process. So
Mhm.
my second year or which was my last year at Jeff Davis, I did my first year of theory and music courses and then transferred to Troy. But I was able to graduate without having to stay any extra time. I was able to, in fact, my next to the last semester at Troy, I took 22 hours. Um,
Wow.
I was I had a pretty good GPA. I was a mostly A, but a few B's, and they would only allow me to take 21 for credit. So I took band for no credit. So I took 22, but only got credit for 21
Mhm.
that year. But I did finish in 4 years.
And for anyone finishing band, anyone in music education in 4 years, because as we well know, band was what a 1 hour course, and and you go what 15 hours a week. English is a 3 hour course. You go 3 hours a week. Band's a 1 hour course. You're there every day for several hours and all day Saturday. And
Yeah,
so
we know.
anybody who does make it in 4 years is good and to do what
Well,
you
we know that band or music requires more real hours for the least amount of hours of any course in collegiate history.
without a doubt, without a doubt. So you got through, and first job was where?
Geneva, Geneva High School, right on the Florida line between Andalusia and Dothan. And I have to tell you, my whole career was a God thing. I did not see this coming. I was student teaching with Bill Hickman in Charles Henderson High School, and there were seven of us, seven music folks, band folks. So you can tell I didn't get a whole lot of podium time, but I didn't know that he was going to night school with the principal slash superintendent of Geneva High School, and they had just lost their director at Christmas with a nervous breakdown. And he told him, he said, you've had a pretty good band here. You better get somebody quick, or you're going to lose the band. And he said, well, I don't know who would I get. And he said, I got one right here with me. And now he didn't tell me all this until I went down there, and uh, Mr. Melton was the guy that was the superintendent slash principal. And he took me to the old band room, which was an old raggedy shack from Fort Rucker that they had down there that they were using, and the band was too big for it. You could see the ground through the floorboards. But he said, I want to show you the new band room that we've just built, and whoever I hire will bring the band into it. And I looked around and I thought, he's not going to hire me. He's going to get somebody with experience. But anyway,
Mhm.
found out during that time, the senior drum major and band captain kept that band going the entire second semester. And I
Wow.
thanked them. Of course, they graduated, but I thanked them profusely because they did an outstanding job. They went over to the elementary school and kept the fifth and sixth grade bands going, and did the high school band and made sure the concerts happened. It was amazing. So that was my first job.
That's great. And how long were you there?
I stayed there 8 years,
Okay.
and I was enjoying a lot of success. It was a 7 through 12 band program as far as marching band and concert band. We started them in the fifth grade. We had sixth grade intermediate, and then they were marching and playing in the concert and marching band in the seventh through 12th grade, um, which was a struggle, but we did all right. I will tell you this. Dr. Johnny Long was my band director, and I remember him saying, Lord God, if any of you guys have any sense in the world, you will go out and find some of these old band directors to help you, but find out what you don't know. Well, I didn't do that on my first year there. And when we went to district contest, which, we used to have back then, you
Oh
had
yeah, I
district,
remember it well. Yeah.
and you'd either get a yes or a no. Yes, you can go, or no, you can't. And I got three no's. And if it'd been three hell no's, it'd been three hell no's. But I listened to the recordings and I came back into the band and I said, band, this is not your fault. This is mine. Listen, this is what we're going to do. And we made notes. And the next year I got people to come in every week to,
Mhm.
to help with the band. And they were so kind, and we'd sit down and talk. And we went the next year and made three yeses. First time that school had ever been to state contest. And we went to Tuscaloosa, where it was held at that time, and made a 1-1-2 on the stage and a one in sight reading. And the mayor met us at the city limits on the way back with the key to the city. I mean, they were just ecstatic. That's something Geneva had never
Amazing.
done, and so it was
And
one of those things.
so from no, no, no to a superior rating at state contest.
Yes, sir.
Fantastic. Yeah, yeah. Getting to know, getting to know people, bringing people in, getting them to help you. And yeah,
Yeah,
good,
it
good
was
advice.
those are some good times, and I was really not planning to leave. But the superintendent from T.R. Miller, or from Bruton City Schools, which T.R. Miller is the high school,
Yeah.
called me and said, I want you to be the band director.
Wow.
And I actually went over a year early. This was my seventh year. And I went over and interviewed, and Betty Ann was out looking for houses. And when I came out, she looked at me and said, what is it? And I said, I don't know. I just didn't get a good feeling. So I turned him down. Well, the
Mhm.
next year, they had a really rough year. The guy that they hired resigned before band camp, or on the first day of band camp. And Mr. Garner was a great guy. He graduated from Gadsden. What was that big school in Gadsden that
Emma Sansom.
Emma Sampson
Okay.
High
Yeah.
School. He was a wonderful guy. He had been a drum major there with Rip Reagan. So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
folks, none of these young guys will know who he is, but he was a legend with Johnny
He
Long.
sure,
They
yep,
were
he
big
sure was.
rivals.
Yeah. Now, were they actually were they roommates at one time?
I don't know. May have
So,
been.
so somehow I want to say that they actually transferred together, um, back in college.
Yeah.
But I do know that they knew each other very well and were
Yeah.
competitive. And of course, they both had just
Right.
amazing
Right.
program. So you interviewed one year, turned
I
him
interviewed,
down,
yeah, turned him
and,
down. The
and
next
then a year
year,
later,
I
they
got a
called
call.
you.
I got a call from him back, and he said, "All right, you get my message." He had sent a message by the arts representative to say, "I don't know why you turned me down, but you're coming to Bruton. Make a list of whatever it's going to take." And so I said, and I, so I walked in his office, and he said, "All right, I'm going to say one thing, and then I'm going to shut up." And that's the way he was. He was a very to the point guy.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I just didn't really realize. I didn't really think you trusted my vision for the band." He said, "I'll stay out of your band room. What's next?" And I said, "Oh, I didn't." He said, "I said I'll stay out of your band room. What's next?" And I went down the list, and it was nothing really that important. They had had a rough year. A lot of stands needed replacing. Done. Couldn't find enough music for the fight song and the Star Spangled. Done. All these kind of things. Holes had been punched in the doors, and that all that done, all just really some basic things. But then he said, "Okay, you're going to be here." I said, "Yes, sir. I think this is the place I need to be." And he said, "All right, I'm going to ask you one thing. I think we ought to have a marching contest here in Bruton, Alabama. What do you think?" And I said, "Well, yes, sir. I think so." I said, "Give me a couple of years, let me get my feet on the ground." He said, "Okay." About 2 years to the day, he says, "What about it?" I said, "Well, let's walk down to the stadium." I said, "You see that little old press box that you can hardly get a few folks in?" He said, "I'll build you a new one." He built a two-story press box
Goodness.
for the band. So and we started the Dixieland Band Festival in 1985. So, yeah.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. Yeah. Administrative support. And
Oh,
uh and of course, we be Bruton City Schools, there's only one high school.
That's right.
So it's not like if we do this for T.R. Miller, then we got to do this for the
Right.
rest of our high schools as well. No, we can put all our support behind our high
Right.
school.
Right.
It's amazing. And of course, the success, those of us who came through, during those years and heard those bands, I think you were class double C, but
Right.
you
We were playing
heard
music
it.
above
Yes.
that.
Absolutely.
I had I was the only guy at Geneva, but I was very appreciative to have Russ Haig. I was able to hire him, and he stayed there my entire time. And after I left, he's since retired, of course, but
Yes.
wonderful, wonderful middle school director. And then when Mr. Garner retired, Lynn Smith was the guy, and again, a very, very supportive. I was just blessed with and all of my principals, and I couldn't even name all of them, but principals, superintendents, I've been very blessed through the years. I was not going to leave T.R. Miller as well. I actually had gotten offered the job at Austin High School up in North Alabama about 3 years before I actually was retirement age, and went up and talked with Ed Nichols. He was going to
I know
become
it. Yeah.
principal, I
Very well.
think, and now I think he's superintendent of the Madison schools up there now.
Madison City.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I intended on leaving, and I went back to talk to Lynn Smith, and Lynn says, "Why do you want to leave?" And I said, "Well, it's a bigger program, and I'll get a little bit of a raise, you know." He said, "Well, how many years you got in Alabama?" And I said, 23. So well, if you stay a couple more years, you could go somewhere and draw your retirement, and I wouldn't stand in your way. I'd hate to lose you." And I got thinking, well, he's right, so.
Turned out to be a great move. Yeah.
But a couple of years later,
Yeah.
after I'd married off Amy, my first daughter, to Craig Arhus, and then my second daughter was about to get married, I get a call from Cairo, Georgia, the
Yes.
president,
Yes.
and he says,
and of course, before we go there, let's not leave out you
okay.
wound up being ABA president.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's a small little office, Yeah, what one of those? Yeah.
Yeah, they elected me as vice president, president-elect, and as
Yeah.
you folks in Alabama know, it's a 2-year term for each.
2 years. Mm-hmm.
But during state contest on Ted Galloway's, who was the president and I was the vice president, he had a heart attack. And Ski Winter, who was the past president, calls me and says, "Johnny, you got to get up here. Ted's had a heart attack, and you got to get up here and run state contest."
Wow.
And so, Lord, I had to just get on had to get all of a sudden find substitutes and get on up there. And so instead of a 2-year term, I ended up having a 3.5-year term. And I didn't honestly, I didn't have time to learn the ropes. So thank goodness the ABA saw fit to hire the first executive secretary, who was Bodie Hinton. And Bodie, former Auburn University
Absolutely.
band director, had retired, and he was a godsend because he kept me sane. He would give me advice. Just a wonderful guy. And then Michael Thomas was well, actually, at first it was Jack State. Who am I trying to think about?
Dave Walters.
Dave's boy, Joe
Joe
Walter.
Walters, yes.
He was the band director at Hartselle High School, and he was my recording secretary, and he kept me sane for a couple of years there. And then I think he did something else, and then Michael Thomas came in and did it. It was a great group of folks that helped this guy that got thrown into the fire stay sane and get things done.
Kind of takes a village to raise a band director, sort of thing. Nobody does it alone. Nobody who has, my experience has been people who are successful, they've got that network of people around them.
Yes. Yes.
And and that the rising tide lifts all boats,
Oh
so to
yeah.
speak. We help each other.
I will tell you that that first year that I had to hire the judges for state contest the next year, I said, I asked Ski, I said, so what, because Ted was at death's door, as you know, nobody thought he was going to live.
Right.
And he made a miraculous recovery, but it was several years later. So I asked Ski what to do, and he said, "Well, why don't you just get Colonel Gibson over there? He was at Fort Rucker, no, Fort Benning in Georgia, and just tell him to bring the music that would be one level below what they're going to play on stage, a chorale and an overture." And back then, I don't know if Alabama now still does two pieces or not, but back in the day, we did.
I think it's just one now.
I think
Yeah.
it probably is. We did that over in Georgia. We went to one. But anyway, I told him that, and Ski calls me on the first day from there, and he said, "Johnny, oh my gosh," he said, "sight reading has been really a disaster." He said, "Nobody has made a one on the first day. In fact, they've mostly been threes and fours." And what we played for chorales were just a little thing out of the tips book or out of some little chorale book. And then we did an
Yeah.
overture. He brought the Alfred Reed Bach chorale series. And by the time, that's a full piece. And by the time you look through that, you didn't have time to look through the other ones. So the
Yeah.
bands were just bombing. And, I felt so bad, but, what do you do?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good gracious. Yeah. So he's got to adjust and, as you did and, pull things together. But wow. And then, so then you wound up following the advice, put in the several more years, and
Oh
then
yeah, I did. I did. Then I
retired. So
yeah,
here's retirement number one.
right. I had a call from the principal at Cairo High School. And he said, "I understand you're the guy I need to hire." And so Betty Ann and I went over there, and I told her, I said, "Now I'm not going to drag you away from your parents. We lived in the same county that my parents lived in, and hers as well." And I said, I can be okay without being there. But she said, "I believe God's opening another door. And if we don't go through it, we'll be kicking ourselves. Now, will I cry? I probably will, but I'll get over it." And she did. She's been a wonderful wife. And we had 13 great years at Cairo, much bigger program. At Miller, we were in the same classification as Geneva, although with 9 through 12, it was a whole different process than 7 through 12. But when we went to Cairo, it was 250 on the marching field and two at first, and then I split it to 3 concert bands over there. So, but very, very enjoyable 13 years there. And then when it was getting grandkids in Birmingham and grandkids in Starkville and harder to get back and forth. So figured if I could get to a little college, we went to a college called Abraham Baldwin Agricultural College,
Yes,
but everybody
sir.
called it ABAC in Tifton, Georgia. About an hour closer and little less time consuming, and did our 7 years there before getting out of it for full time and coming over to Mississippi State. And
Yeah.
that's
So
one of the
after now,
things.
so 3 retirements now,
Yeah,
and now Mississippi State, but
yeah. So asking
still not
Craig,
retired. We're still working.
my son-in-law,
Yeah.
who is one of the directors, can I do something for you? Can I hang out and whatever? He said, "Well, you can hang out, but you can do the student teachers." So that's what I do now is I do the student teachers, and I really enjoy doing that. I fix horns, and with 240 in the band, there's always a horn needing fixed,
Always. Yeah.
and they've let me start direct a community band, and that kind of gets me in front of a band on a regular basis. So yeah, I enjoy it, but I'm not full time anymore.
Absolutely. But Johnny, for people who are just getting into it, if you had to put your finger on, yeah, because you were successful at each and every one of those stops, very successful. Why? What is it that just made it click in every one of those stops?
Well, First of all, I'll go back to the thing I said earlier. Ask for help, especially when you're getting out of school. You tend, like I did that first year, thinking, oh, they'll think I'm stupid if I'm asking for questions. No, everybody is that way. And all the people like myself were that way at one time. And we're excited about helping others fill in the gaps and get there a little quicker than they would if they had to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
That's
that's the main thing right there, I think. And never stop learning. I I still learn things today. I get excited when I go to MEAs. I've been over to Alabama a few, back at Georgia a few. I'm hoping to present at AMEA this year and at GMEA. I've put in for both of them, and um, but I go to other clinics still as well, and still enjoy seeing what others are doing and how things are changing and so forth. So, yeah, don't be afraid to ask and go out and seek help in clinics and having folks come in and so forth.
fantastic. Well, Johnny, we touched on so much. Anything else that you wanted to be sure to get into this interview?
Hmm. I don't I don't know. Um, I think that you have to, again, you have to know in here what you need to do.
Mhm.
And with that, if you are good at something, you're going to be good at it. But if you don't have a talent pool in that area, and I have watched some folks that wanted to be a band director, but they just didn't have the talents, the actual uh, ways to connect with students. And that's one of the things I try to tell my student teachers now is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
What you care.
And that's
Yes.
exactly right with students. And I say, especially it has always been this way. When I was in it full time, it was very important. But when I started out, most people came from a two-parent household. Now that's the exception, not the rule. They may
Yes.
come from a house where they get yelled at all the time, and they don't think they're good at anything, but you can see something in them, and if you connect with them, that may be what keeps them in school and keeps them pushing to where they can find whatever it is in their life that they're good at. And I remember one of the other bits of wisdom Dr. Long told us was um, stay away from the teachers' lounge, because he said that you'll hear those teachers running down a lot of and sure enough, I didn't heed that advice at first, and I remember going a few times and now thinking, I don't need to hear this, because some of those were the best students I had that they were talking about badly in the teachers' lounge. You want to connect with those students and let them know, and that doesn't mean be Mr. Nice Guy all the time. You have to be firm. You have to find a
Right.
way, but you have to let them know that it's because you care about them is why you have those rules and have those standards. And when you do that, they'll appreciate it. And oh my gosh, if I could tell you how many letters I got, and nowadays it's Facebook messages or things like that of, I had no idea when I was teaching this person that they were getting this. And now they're sending things back saying, thank you for not giving up on me, or thank you for being tough on me, or thank you for whatever it was.
Fantastic. Johnny, I have thoroughly enjoyed this, and I know many who watch this interview. Like I said at the very beginning, a lot of people know you. They heard the T.R. Miller band, or or your friends in Georgia, the Cairo bands. But as far as knowing the A to Z, um, probably nobody will know everything that you have shared with us today. And it has been a real thrill. So on
Thank
behalf
you.
of, yes,
And I will say that I do go out and do clinics at schools now for leadership. Dr. Tim Lotzenheiser came to T.R. Miller for about 10 or 11 years,
Yes.
did clinics down there. And when I went to Georgia, he called me and asked me would I like to have him at Cairo. And we had him a couple of times there before he started scaling back. And I use a lot of his wise tips and things like that. So if there are directors out there, they're welcome to contact me. I'd be honored to come and do leadership programs and that kind of thing.
Okay, so folks, you have heard it. Pick up the phone, 1-800 Johnny Folsom, because he's learned a lot along the way from other people and developed his own. And he's one of those definitely willing to give back. So on behalf of Frank Buck and Johnny Folsom, this has been another in the series of Phi Beta Mu Legacy Project interviews.